And the star of the show today, our guest investor, a legend in our community. We call him the patron Santorios of the community because he's kind of like the clubhouse leader for bringing his friends to the community and good vibes. Mr. Michael Santorios, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hello, everyone.
Michael's been investing with JWB since 2016. He's gotten there from 2016 to now, 13 properties, also does private lending with JWB. This is what his portfolio, investing for 10 years, right? This is one market cycle of investing. GC, you want to go through this for us?
Yeah, this is just a great example of what it is to, number one, have a plan, be supported by the right team, and then execute this plan. Michael and his wonderful wife, Ann, have executed this plan to fruition over 10 years, and they've done a really good job. Their money, ever since inception, has returned almost 13% as far as a rate of return. That means every year the money that they've invested continues to earn above average returns on investment. Their total profits are almost $2 million for their total portfolio. That's just the profits. That's not the initial investment there. Out of that, you can start to see the Pacman principle play out for Michael, like we talk about all the time. Pablo, can you hit him with the Pacman principle?
The Pacman principle playing out over here. Actually, you know what, Michael Santorios? Why don't you tell us the Pacman principle?
Oh, well, it's a combination of the appreciation of the property, the tax savings, all the different aspects. The cash flow is the most important for me, but the appreciation is the one that does the most. Yeah,
that's right. That's right. When you lay out the 5 profit centers of rental property investing in a pie chart, what you will end up seeing is that the biggest profit center that is always somewhere between like 60 to 80% is home price appreciation. So when you lay it out in a pie chart, it looks like home price appreciation is the Pac-Man that is eating up all the profit centers, even when you've got a whole bunch of net rental income as the second biggest right here, right? So eating a nice chip of net rental income. And when I look at this, I think of, it's what it says here. One of 42 JWB clients that have earned over $1 million in profits, right? Patron Santorios, the secret's out. You're one of these guys, and that's really, really cool.
There's 5 that have earned over $2 million.
Yeah, 2 million, yeah.
There's number 6 and number 7 are right on the doorstep. Michael and Ann are right on the doorstep of those $2 million client thresholds.
Gregg and I met back in 2016, and I was very reluctant to even think about JWB at the time because I was like, how am I going to invest outside of the area where I live? Back in 2016, Jacksonville isn't what it is today, and back then it had a history that people were like, my mom was like, no way, don't you dare invest in Jacksonville. And when you have a number of properties, you could say 3-4 properties, but once you get into a larger number, where I'm sitting at with 13 properties, sometimes you want to look at it like you do when you talk to your financial planner about your stock portfolio. Is it time to rebalance? Do you have this one piece of property that might be the Pac-Man's not growing like the rest of it is? Is it not appreciating like the rest of them? Is the maintenance higher than the rest of them? Is the insurance higher than the rest of them? And when you add all that up, does it make sense to hold on to that property, or should you consider doing a 1031 tax exchange into another newer property? And there was one that had popped to the top and it just had a lot of maintenance costs. It just, for whatever reason, it just did not seem to be appreciating and had a lot of maintenance. And it was, it was an older property. So the insurance was one of the higher insurance rates than the other ones. And so then I just started thinking, what would it be like to go ahead and sell that property, do a 1031 into a newer property, or maybe even 1031 it from 1 into 2, who knows? But that was just a conversation. I was like, I'd love to play around with that conversation with people to see what their thoughts are.
So that being said, Michael has a whole bunch of homes, right? You listed these out, GC, of how long he's owned them and the cash flow that he's getting right now. Out of the 13 homes that he has, 2 of them are right now averaging this like negative monthly cash flow. And this one, 7447 Sky Drive, is the one that Michael was specifically asking about. So you put together this case study. Anything that you want to talk about here as far as like snapshot of the whole thing?
This is a great teaching opportunity for all of our folks in the community and my team, who continues to get questions like this over and over and over again. It's one of the best ways we can serve clients. So we put the actual numbers to it. And what you'll see on this slide is the punchline here is Michael has earned over $442,000 in positive cash flow over owning these properties, some for 10 years. There are some that have enormously more cash flow than we ever expected in the original pro forma with Michael. And there are some that have less than we would expect. And that is normal. This portfolio mindset is what has played out for Michael. And so you'll see there's 2 out of the 13 that are negative cash flow situations. And Michael, being the great financial engineer that he is he's saying, well, what can I do to make this, can financially engineer this better? And so that's where this conversation started. But overall, you'll see large differences. Part of this is just the success of the next net rental income of the property. And a lot of it is determined by the decision to either buy in cash or to buy with conventionally financed properties. The ones that are the $800 a month on average or $1,000 a month on average, those are the purchases that were made with all cash.
Mm-hmm.
The ones that are less, the $100 a month, $200 a month, maybe $400 a month, generally those are the ones that are financed because he has a mortgage payment to make on those.
All right, so let's get into this case study of 7447 Sky. This is one of these properties that, has averaged negative monthly cash flow. Does it make sense to 1031 it into a new construction home? GC, you want to start talking us through this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I went back to the original pro forma. Let's understand, I know we've had more maintenance costs, but is this a winner property? Are we overperforming if we think beyond maintenance costs? Because if we're thinking about selling this thing, we need to know if it's a winner, right? Sometimes when we think about the most recent maintenance item, it can tarnish an otherwise winning property. So we went back to the original pro forma. When Michael and Ann decided to purchase this property in 2019, this is exactly what they saw. Their purchase price was $138,000 and their original estimated rent was $1,000 a month. They purchased it with 20% down, conventional financing. And then you see at the bottom, what we told them to expect in this asset is a 9% return year over year. So that's the foundation.
Okay, so this is the foundation of the original pro forma of SkyDrive, and this is Instagram versus reality.
There you go. This is estimates versus actuals here. And it's broken down by the different profit centers that we have. So we looked lifetime from 2019 all the way to the end of 2025. And we said, okay, what was the pro forma stating we should have for our lifetime? What do we have actuals from all of these profit centers? Number one, are we winning or losing? And then number two, how are we winning? And when you look at the very bottom there, the return on investment, overall, we told Michael to expect a 9% return on his investment. His return is 18% per year for this asset here on Sky. We've doubled the return expectation. So I know it's been painful, and Michael and I talked about this. A sucker punch with a maintenance cost out of left field is what he experienced. We're going to get into that in a little bit more here. But it's important to think overall here, how is his money performing, especially for some of those profit centers that you don't feel in your bank account every single month? Yeah. We are absolutely crushing it when it comes to the overall return, and especially when we look at home price appreciation as well.
Now you see this thing doing double like the return on investment. Does that help with this decision for you right now? Or are we going to find out where it helps later?
Because Ann and I are not working, we're retired and we're relying on our investments to give us monthly income. When we see negative cash flow or low cash flow, it's like, what can we do to increase the cash flow? But then when we saw that we were completely off on the appreciation piece, it just kind of all made sense that, as much as we thought this property was a big loser, it actually is a big winner because of that Pacman. One of those pieces was substantially larger than we thought it was, which made up for the negative cash flow. So we might not be getting cash flow like we wanted to out of it, but we're still getting the tax savings. We're still getting the mortgage pay down. We're still getting the appreciation.
I think this is a good learning lesson and teaching moment for everybody here about what it takes to sell a property in today's sales environment. Now, we do have a lot of sales in Jacksonville, but sellers have to work harder today to sell properties. As a macro statement, sales are lower today than they were 3 years ago. So if you're a seller, you have to work harder to sell your property. And what that means is you have to spend more money to be able to sell your property. So I pulled what the average sales transaction looks like for somebody selling a property today. Either this comes from our own data for JWB or from client data. And there's some things on here that are market related right now that aren't always in play, but they are right now. And this is why you need to talk to JWB before you're thinking about selling, right? So we'll go down the list here. Number one, you always have real estate commissions. So a typical real estate commission is 6% of the sales price. That's 13 grand right off the top. That's typically always going to be there. You're always going to have closing costs. They might come in at 2 to 3% for your side of the closing costs. So that's another 7 grand right off the top. Now, this next one is a market specific timing, like where we are in the market right now. Concessions or buyer considerations. Almost every buyer that comes to the table here on the retail market, not turnkey, not investor, right? But on the retail market, somebody looking to move into that home.
Which is what you would sell this home into.
Exactly. Thank you for clarifying,
Yeah.
right? The mindset here is Michael and Ann could get the most money for their home by selling it to somebody who wants to live in the home, not to an investor. Well, they're going to come in with things that they want you to fix or change, or, it's called buyer considerations or concessions. The average amount is 4% of the sales price. So that's about $9,000 that you need to do slightly differently than what your property already had in order to get that property sold. The next thing is a property turn. There's a difference between a property turn like Michael's you've seen have been maybe $2,500 or $3,500 on average versus a retail level property turn. You have to put nicer stuff in your home today in order for the sale to be happening. In order for a buyer to want to live in that home and make it their own, it has to pop. Well, the average retail level property turn for JWB clients is $13,000, and JWB as well, is $13,000 right now. That's a moment in time in this market. So if Michael and Ann wanted to sell, that's another $13,000 off the top. You have vacancy costs. Again, if you're going to sell it, the best thing for you to do is sell it on the open market to somebody who wants to live in the home. You can't have it rented at that point. So typically it's 4 months from the time that you no longer have a renter in place to doing the property turn, to listing it on the market, to getting to the sales closing table. So that's 4 months of vacancy costs, which is about $6,000. You're responsible for mowing and utilities and cleaning during that time, which those things add up to another $1,000 estimated. And then you get to the sale, and many times a retail buyer is going to ask for a discount to list price. And so that's another 4% discount off the top. For today's market, and it's not always this way, but for where we are right now, it totals up to about $57,000 that it would cost Michael and Ann, that they would be giving up from this wonderful profit that they have in the property to be able to sell it. And so that was the crux of the conversation that Michael, Ann, and I had a couple of days ago. Michael, anything to add that I didn't go into detail there?
No. And again, I'm glad I went through this exercise. And, I'm not one for selling assets. I've always been a big believer, just hold them for 27 years. I mean, and then let's talk about it when I have no depreciation on it anymore. But until that happens, but the whole purpose behind all this was the conversation with Pablo of just saying, does it make sense to do that? And that was just a conversation I wanted to have. It's like Denny said in the chat there. He's like, today's dog is tomorrow's gem. That's very true. It could, very well could be, and most of the time it probably is, because I only did pay 138,000. As the rent keeps going up, I keep on making more based off my initial investment, and eventually this place will be paid off, generating more cash flow. And then once I've had all the maintenance issues done, they're not continuous maintenance issues on a regular basis. This could become a gem even if it was a dog in 25.
Well said.
So, Michael, what'd you decide?
I think I'm going to keep it, and once that dollar amounts goes above that $12,000 cash flow on a monthly basis, might be looking to pick up another property with the JWB.
There you go. There you go. Good
That's
stuff.
wonderful.
Good stuff. That was awesome. That was a really, really cool breakdown. Let me ask something, Michael. Is in the consideration to keep it?
Yeah.
How would you weigh those two things as far as like what the decision was to keep it? Like, at what point did you make that decision?
Well, I think the numbers, really when it comes down to it, is you got to take the emotion out of it. I mean, do not marry your investments. If you can't fall in love with an investment is just, it's an asset that's going to help, hedge against inflation. It's going to help you with your taxes. It's going to help you with your cash flow. But if you fall in love with it, it might be something that makes you hold on to something that you shouldn't hold on to. And so don't fall in love with them. But the maintenance are emotional because they hurt when they hit. And, you can't help but be emotional about it. But once you take the emotion out of it, and then you look at the actual facts, the raw numbers like we did, which again goes back to our conversation you and I had, is these are the kind of conversations I want to have with people so that we don't make these mistakes. Because I know some people in this group, in this chat and family members who have said, I'm sick and tired of the evictions. I'm sick and tired of, the property turns being so high. And, I didn't expect a new roof and I didn't expect this. And they're getting physically emotional about it. And so real estate isn't for everyone. If you can't take the emotion out of it, then maybe you shouldn't invest in real estate. But if you can put your emotions on the sidelines and just go with the raw, hard facts, and you look at the numbers of people that have become millionaires through real estate going back decades and decades and decades, they can't be wrong. You're gonna have a couple of bad, properties. I mean, we could write a book about it. Seriously.
Mic drop
Just
right there.
that was awesome.
That was awesome.
Let's just clip that thing and play it on a loop, man.
That was awesome.
I love it. We appreciate you. You really, really, really are such a valuable, member of the community. But like to me, on a personal level, you add a lot of value, man. So I just really, really want to thank you for doing this.
No, I really appreciate it. Thank you. And like I said before, many, many times, and I say it to everyone, and I'll scream it from the rooftops, I cannot think of another way to prepare for retirement than to put your money into a great asset like real estate. It's, you're not going to retire in a W-2 paycheck. I'm sorry. You can invest in your 401k, you can put your money in your IRA, your Roth, and all that. But when push comes to shove, I'm collecting cash flow on a monthly basis. I still own all my assets. I'm not selling them to live off of.
I mean, I would say that piece of advice and one more piece of advice. What is it?
Don't
Don't be average.
average.